Let's cook around the world. Together, we'll travel the world one recipe at a time. And today's recipe comes from Mexico, and it is guacamole. The history of this tasty dip dates back to the Aztec Empire in Central America. The recipe soon spread across the Americas with the help of the Spanish conquistadors. However, it was the pirate William Dampier who published the first known recipe in the 17th century in his book titled A New Voyage Around the World. The recipe has gained popularity ever since, especially as avocados are high in fiber, vitamins, minerals, and a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. What makes guacamole such a staple in most homes is the fact it can be prepared fairly easily, and with only a few ingredients it's a great accompaniment to most meals as well as a delicious dip. So let me show you how to make this tasty recipe step by step. And as always, a full list of all the ingredients and quantities are available at the end of this video. We're going to start with ripe avocados, cut them lengthwise with a sharp knife and then twist them apart. To remove the pit, gently tap your knife and twist to dislodge. Next, using a spoon, scoop out the flesh into a mixing bowl. One of the many advantages of using ripe avocados is that it can be scooped out easily. Cut your lime in half and squeeze the juice into the bowl. By adding the juice at this early stage, it stops the avocado from oxidizing and helps retain their gorgeous green color. Using the back of a fork, mash your avocados. It's up to you how chunky or smooth you want the final result. It really depends on your personal preference. I like mine smooth with a slightly chunky texture. However, if you prefer yours to be totally smooth, you could always use a food processor. Finally, chop your onion. I'm using a yellow onion as this is the most commonly used in Mexico, but feel free to use a red onion or even spring onions. We want to chop the onions as finely as possible. Now if you're a professional master chef, then you probably will be able to chop them finely on your first attempt. But if you're like me and your chopping skills are somewhat lacking, then do what I do and go over the onions with your knife until you get the desired size. Again, this will depend on your personal preference, but I would recommend you dice your onions to this size as we don't want them to overpower the overall flavor. Add to the avocado and set aside while we get the other ingredients ready. Finally, chop your jalapeno pepper. If you prefer no heat, then simply remove the seeds before chopping. If you prefer more heat, then either use an extra green or a red jalapeno instead. For me, this is a correct level, and once again I'm using a knife to chop this as finely as possible. Again, add this to the mix and set to one side. Adding tomatoes is probably the most controversial part of this recipe. Opinions are divided on whether to add them or not. The argument against is that it's not authentic, but the original recipe only had 3 ingredients and one of them was sugar. So I think it comes down to a personal preference. I have tried guacamole without tomatoes and truth be told, I'm not a fan. For me, tomatoes add that extra depth of flavour and give a good balance to an otherwise one-dimensional dish. I do remove the seeds as I find they make the overall mixture too wet and adds very little to the overall flavour. Again, chop these as finely as possible and add them to your mix. Add a handful of chopped coriander, cilantro as my friends call it in Mexico. Add a pinch of salt and pepper to taste. Give everything a good mix. Give it a taste test. Mine needed a tad more coriander. One final taste test. And when it looks like this, your guacamole is done. Try this for yourself. I'm sure it's going to be a big hit during movie or game nights, or especially during some gatherings with your friends and family. See you in the next video, and as my friends say in Mexico, buen provecho!